shut it down. If Malcolm don't get it, shut it down. If Dennis don't get it, shut it down. If Usaamah don't get it, shut it down. If DJ don't get it, shut it down. If Yuri don't get it, shut it down.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Mass Action Podcast. This is our 9/11 episode, and today we're going to be focusing in on the Usaamah Rahim case and the David Wright case, which happened here in Boston June 2nd, 2015. But before we get into that, we just want to welcome y'all back to the podcast. For those who've been watching it, for those who are new, hey, we intend to do this more often. This is definitely our intention to have regular discussions about the latest news and developments in the movement today, both here in Boston and nationally. We also understand that a big part of our role is to provide some of the history of the movement, especially over the last 6 years, of which there's not much written. And a lot of our podcasts will be doing all those things. So stay tuned and be definitely looking towards the next upcoming podcast. We want to cover all the current news from the latest developments in the Jacob Blake case in Kenosha to the unfolding developments in Portland to what's happening in Rochester, New York now around the Daniel Prude case. What's happening with the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville. And of course, we have to keep our eyes on the prize of what's happening with the George Floyd case in Minneapolis. All these things and more we want to stay on top of. There's been recent statements by the Attorney General, William Barr, talking about Operation Legend and the use of federal forces more and more on a domestic basis in big cities like Chicago and others. These are all very serious moves by the government that threaten everyone's rights, and it's totally connected to what we're out on the streets protesting today. We're going to cover all these things in upcoming podcasts. Our next one that we will take up next, we'll be looking at the March on Washington that just took place. There was basically a tale of two marches. And the families that have been working with Mass Action definitely participated in this as well, some from across the country, to organize a march to the Department of Justice to demand that all the cases of police brutality be reopened. There's many families that were underwhelmed by the speeches given at the Lincoln Memorial on that day, focused solely on voting on reform legislation. But we see the power of the mass movement, the need to remain in the streets, and that's what's really pushed all these questions to the fore. And in that vein, when we got back from DC, we called a demonstration with a lot of the families in Massachusetts. It was really a historic gathering, a historic development in Massachusetts politics. You had 9 families that had supported this demonstration. You had the family of Malcolm Gracia. Christina Gracia endorsed the demonstration. That's a sister of Malcolm Gracia. He was killed in New Bedford in 2011. A group that's formed around the Yuri Stamps, who was also killed in 2011 by the Framingham police. The family of DJ Henry, a famous case now, they're from Easton, Massachusetts. He was killed in New York, but they're fighting since 2010 to reopen that case. We're working with the family of Dennis Reynoso, who was killed in 2013 in Lynn by the Lynn police. His sister, Jesse Reynoso, endorsed this march. And then we had several families from Boston, the family of Terrence Coleman, the family of Usaamah Rahim, the family of Bo Ramsey White, the family of Ross Batista, and also the family of Justin Root, who basically is the most recent case in Boston. He was killed in February of 2020. So one of the main things that we demanded was that the governor, Charlie Baker, immediately assign a special prosecutor to reopen all past cases of police brutality. And basically, but even before we called the demonstration, word of the demonstration spread, and basically word reached him. So we want to play a clip for you that kind of shows you the preparedness of the leaders of the government in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So here comes a clip right now of Governor Baker talking about reopening the cases.
Several people who died in the hands of police are watching reopen some of these past cases that we've been calling for that today at the State House. They want you to assign a special prosecutor for those cases. Is that something you can do with so review?
Okay, I'm not sure about legal authority here, okay, and I didn't know you were gonna ask about this. It's always been my impression that the state official who has the most latitude with respect to reopening cases is the Attorney General. And I do know the Attorney General can choose to take cases that DAs either don't take or aren't interested in. I don't know if the Attorney General has the authority under existing law to reopen a case that's been closed. And as I stand here, I don't know if I do either.
Is there any more planning in terms of any social unrest that can be displayed in Boston? Is there any more planning underway right now?
I mean, our basic strategy and our basic approach to all these issues around protests and demonstrations has been to pay a lot of attention to what's trafficked around on social media, because that's where a lot of the messaging and the communication about events takes place, to talk regularly to our colleagues in local government about whether they're appropriately staffed and ready to ensure that whatever event might be going on in their community is going to be safe, and then if they ask us for help, to try to be there to support them. And I think that strategy in Massachusetts, with the exception of one night, May 31st, has worked pretty well.
So is planning always underway?
Yeah, people are talking to each other all the time about this stuff.
Governor, Northeastern just came out and let students for gathering at hotel rooms on their dorm, not going to refund tuition for the fall semester. Is that too harsh, or is that what you'd like to see?
I think everybody knew what the rules of the game were coming in, and I think it's really important, especially during this time when kids are coming back to school.
So as you see, Governor Baker didn't seem to know what his role was. We just want to set up a view of some of the local news coverage.
For cases of police brutality to be reopened. NBC 10's Malcolm Johnson spoke to several families who lost loved ones in police shootings. He joins us live now from Boston with more on this. Malcolm.
That's right, Shannon. A number of families impacted by police violence were at today's rallies, each of them with different stories, but similar pain.
Holidays! I can't enjoy holidays, not even a day. It's like it just happened. It keeps coming into my mind.
A mother's pain in losing a child can be detected instantly.
You never forget when you lose a child. You never forget. And I'll always carry that hole in my heart that my son is gone.
For these parents, their children died at the hands of police officers, each case involving alleged police misconduct.
6 officers opened fire at once, with 31 bullets discharged, 26 penetrated him. and within moments, he was dead.
9 families have joined marchers and the mass action against police brutality organization.
It's time for a change now. Reopen the cases.
They're taking their fight to lawmakers, pushing to have cases involving police misconduct reopened.
We're here mainly with the families of Massachusetts who've gathered to demand that Governor Baker assign a special prosecutor to reopen all the cases of police brutality in Massachusetts.
Their fight is not a new one, but one picking up steam following a number of unarmed black men dying in police custody.
It's not just my family. This is an epidemic in the United States, and it's right here in Massachusetts.
And tonight, D.A. Rollins says each of these cases took place during previous administrations, but says 3 months ago, during the height of the pandemic, she reached out to each of these families and their attorneys to speak more in depth about these cases virtually. She says that offer still stands and says what she's looking for now is new evidence in each of the cases. We're reporting live tonight in Boston. I'm Malcolm Johnson, NBC 10 Boston.
So there's some things we wanted to clear up in the media coverage here. Basically, there's a couple things. We've been explaining publicly that mass action we've been organizing and demanding that these cases be reopened for years, alongside these families, many of them for years, the Justin Root family now for several months. But basically, we've done press conferences in front of the DA's office from when Dan Conley was in office and since Rachel Rollins has been in office. We've even marched in front of Mara Healey's house. We've protested in front of the State House before. It wasn't until George Floyd was killed that our last press conference in front of the DA, we even heard from the government after doing it for probably about 5 years. Audio is perfect. And basically that very day that we did the protest, I got a call from Rachel Rollins, and she said in this, or at least it was reported in this media coverage, that she reached out to the families, and that's not true. Actually, Rachel Rollins reached out to Mass Action, called me personally, and she was perfectly content to meet with us. The only reason she was willing to meet with the families is because we would not meet with her without the families. So that part of it should be said. I don't believe any of the families have been contacted by Rachel Rollins. Maybe some, but I know there are families who have not been contacted by Rachel Rollins. So anyways, we still demand that she reopen the case, that no new evidence is needed. All the probable cause you need to indict exists in the current investigative files in all these cases that are under dispute. And if you really wanted to prosecute, you would do so. You already have the power, use it. But if you will not do it, apparently it's in question who has the power. Because one of the other things that happened, the very next day, I received a call from the Attorney General's office, Mara Healey's office, from a deputy, an assistant attorney general for civil rights, who explained that the Attorney General, according to their understanding, did not have the power to reopen murder cases. That was solely the power of the district attorney under the existing Constitution of Massachusetts. However, that the governor may have that power. But I find it curious that neither in the governor's speeches or in any statements from the Attorney General, neither of them seem to know who has the power. And that just seems like a convenient cop-out. We demand immediate action at a statewide level. We're not going to wait for these DAs to make a decision. But along those lines, because of the united fight and the growing call, the unified call of these families, I think you're seeing some motion. Curiously enough, the same day that we called the demonstration, the Middlesex DA decides to release 400 pages of files of the Uri Stamps case, which I talked about earlier. He was killed in 2011. So this once again underscores that these aren't really legal questions. These are political questions. There's really no reason legally why it wasn't reviewed up to now. Only that we started to demand it. And this is the message of mass action. We have to demand justice. Otherwise, we'll be waiting a long, long time to see it. So we just wanted to give you a little taste. They said it was only 100 people that stood out in front of the State House. There was actually quite a few more than that. And as we got going, we picked up even more. So just wanted to give you a little flavor of what was going on. Maybe we can set up that clip.
What he said? Reopen the cases. Dennis Reynoso, what he said? Reopen the cases. Uri Stamps, what he said? Reopen the cases. Malcolm Garcia, what he said? Reopen the cases. DJ Henry, what he said? Reopen the cases. Richard, what he said? Reopen the cases. Daryl Mount, what he said? Hey. Reopen the cases. Michael Brown, what he said? Hey. Reopen the cases. Kerry Ball Jr., what he said? Reopen the cases. All these cases, what he said? You gotta reopen the cases. Nathaniel Pickett, what he said? Reopen the cases. Tyrone West, what he said? Reopen the cases. Aja Dixon, what he said? Reopen the cases. Eric Garner, what he said? Reopen the cases, cause I can't breathe. Walter Collins, what he said? Reopen the cases. Franklin Jonas, what he said? Reopen the cases. Hey, 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 hey. Reopen the cases. Hey, 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 hey. Reopen the cases. Fulano Castillo, what do you say? Reopen the cases. Tatiana Jefferson, what do you say?
All right, so it was a very, very powerful historic march and gathering, and this is just the beginning of more to come in Massachusetts, and really what we're trying to see nationwide. I know other families who are fighting to get their cases reopened. We had a massive gathering in Minneapolis, July 11th and 12th, where reopen the case was a central thing. Everyone was marching around. It's really become a real thing that's taken hold of families across the country, and communities across the country are also starting to take up this call because it's really at the heart of getting justice. Most of these families never even got a trial. If you want the police to go to jail for what they did, you have to have a trial. So they're trying to sweep these cases under the rug, closing the investigations. We say, no, reopen these cases. And if the DA won't do it, let the governor do it. And if the governor's not taking action, we demand the DOJ take action to reopen these cases. So there was all walks of life are coming together around this fight, and we just wanted to play another clip of one of the families, the most recent family to the club you never want to be a part of.
She said, everybody, let's use our hearts, our love, and our intelligence to work together to show the rest of the world how humans are supposed to treat each other. We stand together, united as human beings. We want the police to be held accountable and for everyone's life to be respected and valued, as it should be. We are all together in our pain because we have lost someone we love to police violence. And that's what brings us here today, the killing of my brother, Justin Root. My brother was shot multiple times in Boston and then chased and shot again an additional 31 times while he laid on the ground, covered in blood, clutching his heart, and he had lost 2,000 cc's of blood. It was in a semi-comatose condition, and he was not pointing anything at anyone. All 6 officers have admitted that he did not brandish or point anything at anyone before he was shot 31 times. Everyone should be alarmed. No rational person could have thought that at any point that Justin, who was in a semi-comatose condition, that he was a danger to anyone in order to justify killing him. I'm here today to demand that the Norfolk District Attorney, Michael Morrissey, opens up Justin's case for an independent investigation so we can get to the truth of his killing. And if he will not, I will go to Governor Baker and I will ask him to appoint an independent investigation immediately, because I am not going to stop until it's reopened. And these families deserve to have their cases reopened too. Enough is enough.
All right, so it was real powerful, bringing together all these families. And when we were done with the march, you know, we ended in Terrence Coleman Park. It's called Peters Park. We're going to change that to Terrence Coleman Park, and we just want to play a clip from you of just what the families had to say at that time, starting with Hope Coleman.
Part of us. This is not all of us. There's a lot more of us. It ain't no joke when you mess with hope. It's time to reopen all the cases.
Yeah!
Stop effing around. It's time to reopen the cases.
Yeah.
Not one more.
Not
one damn more.
Not one more.
Get rid of them killer cops. Lock them up. And reopen all the cases. I'm going to keep on saying it till you open the damn cases now. Thank you.
Hey everybody, they might have their great white hope, but we have our great black hope right here, Hope Coleman. All right, so I want to give it to Rahim or Shahida, either one. Rahim.
Wow, thank you all. Thank you. It was a long walk. But you know, I thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And you know, people are talking about police violence as it's being a systemic problem. And being a nurse, I was thinking about this today, and I said, systemic. When a systemic problem attacks the body, the whole body, what happens? It becomes septic. And the whole body system becomes septic. And you suffer from sepsis. And that's what we're suffering from now. Not just here in Boston, but throughout the whole country, the whole world. We're suffering from sepsis, systemic affliction of the whole body. That's all. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Give it up for Rahima.
And tune in on Friday. We're going to go more in depth into on the podcast on this case. Very important case and very complex. Shahida, do you want to say some words? Please, we got to have Shahida's back on the 28th, y'all, for David Wright. It's the mother of David Wright and Usaamah's sister.
Good evening, everybody. This is just overwhelmingly beautiful to see everybody out here. We're fighting for the same cause to reopen all the cases. As we see right now, my son is facing life even after one of his charges he appealed was removed. It doesn't make sense. My brother is 6 feet under, and the people that did it are still alive, and they're still running around. We don't know who it is. We can't even tell who it is. All I'm saying is all I've ever said before. We want the truth. Without truth, there is no justice. They keep lying, fabricating shit. Excuse my language. Kids. They keep lying and fabricating everything. If you were in the courtroom, you would see the lies that were spewed. The lies, the injustice that was spewed. 28 years he was given. All on conspiracy charges. He decided, he said, no, I'm not pleading guilty to this. He pled innocent. And when he pled innocent, they even said, please, they said to his attorney, please listen, if he waives his right to appeal, we'll look at possibly giving him less time. How do you plead innocent and waive your right to appeal? What is that saying? There's so many injustices in this case. So much. We just want justice. We want the truth. And we want to stop with the bullshit. We want the truth. This is my son and my brother, and for all the cases out here, they need to be reopened. Fuck the bullshit. Thank you.
Free David Wright. 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 Right on. So we all have to be there on the 28th. You got the message. We need to spread it. We need to be present and show that this movement is really real, not just lip service. We got to back these real fights. So we're just gonna close up. I'm gonna just leave you with a few thoughts that came up on the last rally that I was asked to speak at. Yes, so as Shahida, the mother of David Wright, most eloquently said, we need to stop the bullshit. So along those lines, it is 9/11, and we did want to talk about the Usaamah Rahim case. You really can't talk about the David Wright case either without talking about the Usaamah Rahim case. They're both connected. I'll let Rahim, the mother of Usaamah, can kind of set it up the best and let y'all know what happened. She was gonna possibly be on this broadcast, but she had a meeting with her lawyers and the Department of Justice today, just to show you the real intent of the government. Both David Wright and Rahim had appointments with the courts coming up before COVID hit, and we as Mass Action were already preparing to help organize some support for them. But when COVID hit, of course, all the court appointments were delayed. So Rahim had to get another date with the DOJ to appear before court to argue. What she's trying to do is get some of the identity, some of the information that's been redacted during this investigation because it was a so-called terror investigation. They want to get it released so they can organize some kind of defense and pursue justice unfettered. And the government, in its cynical way, decides to schedule the court appearance on September 11th for a terrorist, quote unquote, case. So if you think that's unbiased and just a coincidence, I don't know what to tell you. But in any case, let's hear from Rahima now. This is from a press conference calling the march, where she goes into some detail about the case. And this will set up our conversation with Shahida after that.
I was just reflecting on the fact that the first time that I came to this building here behind me, the State House, was 60 years ago when I came with my third grade teacher, and they used to bring us on tours. I never thought that I'd be back here again 60 years later at the gates asking for justice for my son, and not just my son, but other people's sons and daughters who've been brutally killed by the police. And Boston, we like to say that we don't do such things here in Boston. It happened in Minneapolis, it happened in Texas, but never in Boston. It happens here in Boston. It happened here with my son. Growing up as an African American, I knew that as an African American here in the United States, we're always racially profiled, and the justice does not run at its best for us here. I knew that growing up. But little did I know, I accepted the faith of becoming a Muslim many years ago as a teenager. Little did I know that after 9/11, I again would be doubly profiled and put under a microscope. So we have like double jeopardy, being African American and being Muslim, especially here in Boston. My son, Usaamah, was 26 years old, a good person, law-abiding, never in any trouble. Had attended the college in Miami-Dade. We moved down there for him to go to college in 2007 when he finished high school. He attended and graduated from Brookline High School. We tried to give our children the best in living, the best in education, and we tried to make them good citizens, and he was a good citizen. We were a good citizen. I've worked as a registered nurse here for over 4 decades here in Boston, taking care of my patients. It doesn't matter to me what color, what creed, what religion, what their job is. I take care of my patients. I follow through on my oath, and my oath as a nurse was to care for my patients. The police, their oath that they take is to serve and protect the community. They're not doing it. I'm telling you now, they're killing a particular segment of the community, the African American community. They're slaughtering our men, and if they're not slaughtering them, they're imprisoning them from the time they're young boys, which then literally destroys their lives. So when they do get out of prison, they can't even function in society. We're demanding that all the cases be opened. All of the cases. All of the cases. My son was on his way to work. He was standing at the bus stop in Roslindale. You may have heard the story. When at 7 a.m. in the morning, when behind him, out of these cars that were parked there, 6 to 8, I don't know how many undercover men, just see on some of the grainy video that they slid out of their cars and they surrounded him as he was talking on the cell phone with his father, who was still in Miami. His father was diagnosed with cancer and he was dying, actually. And he was talking to his father on his cell phone when these undercover officers surrounded him with guns drawn. They said that they announced themselves. My other son was also on the other line and did not hear. Nobody heard them announce themselves. shots rang out. They shot him 3 times. 3 times. And after they shot him, he lay in that parking lot. They said they administered CPR. They didn't, because I lived right around the corner from that parking lot, and I got there as soon as I heard, because my son called me and said, we're talking to Usaamah on the phone, and we heard a loud noise. I said, he just left for work. They said, go, Mom, go. And I got up there, and he was already gone. His clothes were laying on the ground in a heap, and there were several ambulances there. And I asked the policeman. They had it all taped off. I went around the tape. I don't care. That's my son. I got in there, and he said, well, how did you get here? I said, I'm a mother, and I came here for my son. I heard he was shot. Why? Why? Where is he? I lived 5 minutes away from the Faulkner Hospital, Brigham and Women's. Not even 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes if you go fast. They loaded his body into an ambulance and took him all the way across town to Brigham and Women's in Boston. On a good day, that's almost 30 minutes. So by the time he got there, he was dead on arrival. Dead on arrival. So I say to you, he was not only racially profiled, but religiously profiled. And because he was a Muslim, the Boston police and the Joint Task Force centered in on him. And they surrounded him and they murdered him. But that's not the end of the story. The same time they murdered him, they were in Chelsea, Mass, arresting my grandson, who's the same age, literally, as my son. They grew up like cousins rather than uncle and nephew. They were arresting him. The SWAT team burst into their apartment. All of this because of the hyped up do I want to say media? Around us, the news around us, saying every Muslim is a threat, a potential terrorist. He was not a terrorist, and neither was my grandson, who now has sat in the prison for 5 years for some stupid, untrue charges. And they plan to give him life in prison for what? He never did anything either. We want those cases open. We want it investigated. Our hearts are breaking, as yours would if it were your child murdered and wrongly accused. Thank you.
All right, so basically, you got the story from Rahima of what unfolded. We wanted to show quickly the video, surveillance video that was released. You can access it on YouTube, but since you're on the Mass Action Podcast, we want to bring it up right now and take a look at it. And let's see if I can I narrate? All right, so you see the person circled, that's Usaamah, Rahim, and he's the one in the yellow circle. What we do know is that he was talking to his father on the phone while he was walking. And so that's what we know. Now here you see these are out of uniform, the Joint Terrorist Task Force, that's Boston Police and the FBI. Several of them. Now there's 3 you see. 4, here's a 4. They were just waiting for him in these cars. 5. And now they're surrounding him. They claim he lunged at them with a knife. That's why they shot him fatally. There he is. He's moving at a very average pace. One thing you should know about him too, he has a awkward gait because one of his legs is kind of shorter than the other. So the idea that he was, some kind of threat, who's going to run up on somebody is really not really credible on the face of it. What they also produced, other than everybody got their story together, was a knife that they claimed that he had, and they say it was in his hand. From the video, you can see there's nothing conclusive that you could say was a knife. We know he was on the phone, and maybe we could talk about this cell phone with Shahida when she gets on. But basically, they took his life for no really good reason. If they wanted to detain him, you know, they probably could have done it another way. And as far as the knife and the sheath that the knife was in, allegedly, Usaamah's fingerprints were not found on any of these items. And these are some of the reasons why we're demanding this case be reinvestigated, it be reopened. Dan Conley refused to file charges. Rachel Rollins has the power. She should reopen it immediately. If she doesn't want to do it, Governor Baker should assign a special prosecutor to reopen this case post haste. So now we have the opportunity. We want to bring Shahida on, the sister of Usaamah Rahim, and the mother. Excuse me. So now we have the opportunity. We want to bring sorry, a little technical difficulties. All right, so Shahida, if you're listening, hopefully we can get you on. There might be a little delay between our sound here.
Hi.
Hey, Shahida, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me, Brock?
You can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, here we go. I got to
Can you
get
hear
plugged
me?
into the right device. That's the problem.
Oh.
There we go. Okay, now we're good. Now we're good.
Okay, give me 1 second. I should just going in the house.
Okay. Were you able to watch the broadcast?
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, good.
Can you turn on your video? Yeah, awesome.
Okay. 1 second. Okay, hi.
Hey, hey.
Hi. Sorry.
Ah, there you
I
go.
actually just came in the house.
Right on. Yeah, I was just wondering if you were able to see the broadcast.
I could hear the broadcast, but because I wasn't on Facebook each time you showed a video clip, I wasn't
Right.
able to see it. But I could hear after you picked back up on the conversation.
Okay, well, yeah, I just wanted to see if I know we've talked about this before. I mean, you were there when everything happened.
Yeah.
And I know you have a story to tell, and a lot of people don't know the story.
Yes.
And first off, just really want to, offer my condolences once again, for just this horrific thing that you've had to experience. And, really thank you for sharing your story with us today. And definitely, I'm sure a lot of people here, this will be the first time they're hearing it. I just went over the video from the parking lot where your brother was killed. And I was just talking to the audience about kind of what we know, what was happening at the time. Like he was on the phone.
On June 2nd.
Yeah. Could you elaborate a little bit of what you know about it?
My brother and took my son into custody. There's so many aspects of this case. There's so many things that they threw in the case to fit a narrative that to start at the beginning, there's still pieces missing, and there's still pieces I can't even talk about yet. As you know, David is going for resentencing on the 28th of September. At least that's the date they gave us for now. Part of his, so let me go back. I'm glad you addressed the fact that there was no latent fingerprints on the knife. In the beginning, which was so crazy, after they shot and killed my brother, and they were going on the news, and at the time, he was the commissioner, right? And he went on the news and he did different interviews, and he said the interviewer person asked him, he said, okay,
they can't hear.
the family said that he was talking on the phone to his stepfather. No, we never recovered a phone from the scene. There was no phone at the scene. We didn't recover any phone. We just recovered a knife. But it wasn't until the attorneys at the time that was representing my mother, they did research because they wanted to find out as well, like, where's the phone? Because he was talking to my stepfather and also my brother on the phone. So they pulled the phone records, and lo and behold, at the same time, the exact time that they shot and killed my brother, he was on the phone talking to my stepfather and my brother, my other brother. So then the question arises, how can someone steadily hold a knife and a phone at the same time and you would be afraid, right? And it makes you wonder what else is being thrown in the game on top of it, that there was no fingerprints on the knife. I bet there was fingerprints on the phone, right? So fast forward, I get a call from my son, from David, and he said, Mom, my other brother, he just called me and he said, Usaamah just got shot and I'm on my way to work. I'm like, what do you mean he got shot? What do you mean he got shot? He said, I don't know the details. Call Nana, my mother. So I called my mother and she was rushing out the house and she said, yes, Usaamah got shot. I'm rushing out the house. They're taking ambulance. To the hospital. I'll call you when I get to the hospital, and I'll send you some money to take a cab because it doesn't sound good. And at that time, they cut off all our internet connection for our phones. So we were in the hospital looking for Usaamah, not even knowing what was going on in the news, not even knowing any of it. They hadn't even reached my house yet at that time. So I was looking to get money up to call a taxi, so David could call a taxi. Uber and Lyft wasn't all that, because that was 5 years ago, so it wasn't that accessible like it is now. But anyway, so I kept trying to, after that, I called him back and the phone kept ringing. I called him over 50 to 60, could even been 100 times between his cell phone and my house phone, not knowing that at that time, SWAT, FBI, were all in my house. At that particular time, the time that I left it that morning from my house, I was just bringing my kids to school, bringing my youngers to school. And my daughter had just dropped off my grandson to school. And she had came back and she was going on a field trip, so she was preparing things. The way they entered my house is they threw a flash bomb through the door and kicked the door in. My daughter heard that and didn't know what it was. She ran out the back door and down the stairs outside. From then they proceeded into David's room. There was, I think he said about five or six, his room wasn't huge, 5 or 6 looked like SWAT team members or FBI agents, heavily armed with AK-47s, all pointed to his head. And they told him, get on your knees, get on your knees. Now, David is 6'8", about 6'8", and at that time he was probably 400 pounds. And they specifically said, if you move an inch, we're blowing your fucking head off. Where's the weapons? There were no weapons. And he said, what are you talking about? They said, where's the weapons? Where's the bombs? Where's it at? Where's everything at? They ran through the whole house. There was nothing found because we don't have weapons. He didn't have any weapons, period, point blank. They cleared the house. So during trial, I'm kind of going to be jumping around just to get to the different aspects of it. During trial, they said, well, how long before you knew that there was no threat? You know what they said, Brock?
What?
After they entered the house, how long did you know after you entered the house that there was no threat? 5 minutes. They kept David in the house for 10 hours after, interrogating him.
10 hours.
In the house. No recording devices. Everyone has a cell phone. They all had a cell phone, and the attorney asked them, well, you all had cell phones. No one thought to use, well, we weren't really sure how to use the phone and how to record. She said, come on, you didn't know how to use the record on your phone? In the meantime, there was a big FBI truck parked outside of the house on the side that had all kinds of video monitoring things in it. So the question is, why didn't you just take him there? The point was so that they could question him and narrate their own story as to his responses and what his answers were and what he was actually saying. So during the time that I was calling him all those times, he said that he was in the house. He said, the caller ID is on the phone. Can I answer it? It's my mother. I'll put it on speaker. No, you can't answer the phone. You know, it's endangerment. It's a threat. If you answer the phone, we'll feel threatened. We don't know what's going on. You can't. He said, you can even answer the phone and put it on speaker. That's my mother trying to call me. Nope, you can't answer the phone. He said, can I answer the phone? And one of the officers put his hand on his weapon and said, don't answer that phone. In the meantime, I was leaving messages because I had an answering machine where you could hear the messages if someone's leaving a message. On the other end, I said, you have an attorney? You do not have to talk. He asked them multiple times for an attorney. I think we're doing such a good job. Let's just keep on going. This is all the things that they did. This is why when I said stop with the bullshit, that's only a pinch of the bullshit, right? So his attorney, myself, and my mom and the children, they sat in a car. We walked up to the house where he was at. I first walked up. Before I got the attorney, I first walked up before the attorney met us. I already had an attorney. Before the attorney met us, I walked up to the house. She told me that I don't need to answer any questions. I need to let them know that he has an attorney. And that's exactly what I did. I even passed the person. I said, the first thing I said was, I'm looking for my son, David Wright. Can I enter? Who? I said, David Wright. Oh, do you know David? And looking at his friend, I don't know David Wright. What apartment? I said, apartment 3, the apartment that's right there that you guys are blocking. Oh, no, we didn't. Oh, I don't know. Why? I said, because he has an attorney. Well, what's her name? And I told her the name, and I gave them the card. I wrote the name down on a card, and I gave it to them. Oh, we'll make sure he gets it. Hey, would you like to talk to us over here, this man? I said, I'm not talking to anyone. I was advised not to talk to you all, and you all need to know that my son has an attorney. They still kept him in there for 10 hours because what they were doing is they were trying to build up a case or anything. By them keep on like questioning him, asking this question. They tried to see by his answers, oh, could this be a case that we could probably get him on? Could this be a case we get? That's why it took 10 hours. The attorney, when the attorney showed up and we walked to the gate, oh, we can't let you in. She was like, who's leading this? Oh, the head of such and such and such is leading it. I'll let him know that you're out here. She said, let them know that his attorney is out here and I need to speak with my client. Before you all even think about getting an arrest or anything, I need to speak to my client. They kept pushing it off. She kept asking them, where's he at? He's praying. Oh, they said he went in the bathroom. He'll be out, but we're still going to wait for the supervisor to let you in to be able to talk. We were there and it was cold and rainy. We were there for, I would say, 6 of the 10 hours that they were there. Finally, someone came out. It was 2 people. They said, hi, we're such and such. They were some working for somewhere in the FBI agency said, and they said, we just came out to let you know that we're placing David under arrest. She said, I just stood out here for over 5 hours, and I let you know that I wanted to talk to my client before you get an arrest warrant. What's the problem? This is why I said to stop with the bullshit, right? That's minute part of the bullshit. By the time we got to court, second of all, even before court, for 2 years, they held him in solitary confinement. Solitary confinement. 23-hour lockdown. 1 hour rec. My son has never been in jail. My son has never been arrested. He does not have a record. He graduated from high school. And to top it off, he just got accepted to the University of Medina. And that's what we had plans for. When Usaamah was seen going into the ATM for CVS the first time, the plan was we were both going to go half on his ticket for him to be able to make it to the university, because he kept sending back and forth the paperwork back and forth for him to be accepted. Okay, they needed the medical records, they needed his school transcript. So we had to keep it back. So after a while, when you go past a certain time, then you would have to pay for your own plane ticket, or they would pay for transportation as long as all the documents were in, but they weren't in on time. So Usaamah said, you know, Shahida, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to go half with you for his plane ticket. That's why he went to CVS to collect the money to go to my house and bring it to my son. The problem is these agents that were tapping the phone, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly. So when we get to the DA's office, they said, the DA, my mother said, I want to know step by step why you murdered my son. Oh, well, we were afraid that if we she's like, and I want to know who said, don't let him get on that bus. Oh, we were afraid if he got on the bus and got to Forest Hill, there was a lot of people in detail. We were afraid that maybe he might do something to somebody. They knew he wasn't. They had the recordings on the phone. They knew.
We just lost the sound.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
Okay.
we got you back.
Sorry, I had a call was coming in. It was actually David. So they knew exactly what was going on, because they were taping the conversation. So they knew what the intentions were. They knew there wasn't any intention for him to
Well,
go
that's
down.
one thing. I know there's so many layers to this case.
Yeah.
And we really probably want to come back to it again,
Okay.
too.
Yeah.
But we definitely wanted to focus on this now because we know you have this court appearance coming.
Yeah.
So maybe we could talk a little bit about, because obviously there's so many problems with how this was handled. You know, he wasn't allowed to see legal counsel.
Yeah.
You know, he was basically detained against his will. And there's just so many
That's why
aspects that have to be looked into. There was one aspect I wanted you to get into a little bit about one of the other defendants named in this case, Nicholas Rovinsky.
Oh,
And I don't know if you could actually, maybe we can play this clip. It's actually the second one.
sorry, I kept getting muted because that's actually David.
Basically, he was released from prison.
Yeah.
So hold on, we're just gonna play this clip.
I can't hear
news
it, but
coverage. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But basically, you know, there's been a lot of entrapment type cases involving the FBI, and this seems to have a lot of those kind of fingerprints to it. And this is one aspect that we want to discuss as well. Is just, you know, what is the Boston police doing working with the FBI, and Um, you know, what is the FBI doing surveilling people with this wide net? But this Nicholas Ravinsky, he seems to be kind of a peculiar character.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna play the coverage here. In 1 second.
Do you have the need for speed?
Well, beyond that too, while they get that clip set up, it seemed like they... Oh, we're starting it.
Ordering the early release of a Rhode Island man convicted in a beheading plot. Attorneys for Nicholas Ravinsky say he has medical conditions that make him vulnerable to serious illness from COVID-19. Back in 2017, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for participating in a plot to behead a conservative blogger on behalf of ISIS. Ravinsky testified then against David Wright, an Everett man sentenced to 28 years in prison for his role in the conspiracy. Prosecutors say he orchestrated the plan to kill a New York woman for putting together a Prophet Muhammad cartoon contest. That plot was never carried out. And Wright's uncle was also implicated in the plot. Back in 2015, he attacked law enforcement officers in a Roslindale parking lot. He was then shot and killed by police.
All right. Can you hear me, Shahida? Oh, you're on mute. All right. Shahida, are you there? Well, we may have lost Shahida. Hopefully, we'll try to get her back on. Oh, here we go. Wait, I'm hearing sound.
Hello?
Oh, there you go.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Sorry.
Shahida?
Hi.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, sorry
Okay,
about
sorry
that.
about
I
that.
had to answer the other line. That was
Oh,
actually
okay.
favorite call. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, does he have an update that you want to share or anything? Can't hear you, actually. You're on mute.
Sorry. No, he doesn't have an update. He was just doing his regular calling.
Oh,
He
okay.
calls me. Yeah.
So how is he holding up anyway? You said he had never been to prison before. I can't
Yeah.
imagine what this
Yeah.
experience has been for him.
It's he's been holding up actually good. And he actually said that when he was in solitary confinement, he was there with God. So that's what kept his faith is keeping him strong. And he's a very strong-minded person, individual, and it's really sad because for me as a mother, it's sad because he was pretty much my not sidekick, but I have two younger ones, and he always helped in the house with the younger ones. He always helped me with everything. If I wasn't feeling well, he would take care of things. You know, he is a really good-hearted person. I don't want to say was because he's still with us, but he is really a good-hearted person and a funny person, very funny person. Character-wise, he's very funny. But I'm sorry, you were saying about his co-defendant, correct?
Right. Well, before I actually get into that, Why don't we just talk about he was charged with a 28-year sentence, correct? And this was a number of
Right.
charges. Could you get into that?
Yes.
And one of them
Yep.
was appealed, and he won in the courts.
Right. So he was the charges that he had. The sad thing about it, one of the sad things about it, was that some of those charges would have not been applied if he had pled guilty. So the prosecutor said to the attorney, "Listen, if David, pleads guilty, we won't look at even adding this additional charge or additional charges on it. If he continues to plead innocent, then we're going to add these charges." And they did. And he pled innocent, period. So he appealed. And then even after he pled innocent and he testified on his behalf, and he said he pled innocent and he was going with the pleading innocent, she even asked, off the record, do you think that possibly David, if he waives his right to appeal, we can look into possibly asking for a reduced sentence? That's why I said stop with the bullshit. Then one of the jurors, he was at lunch at a lunch place, the same place one of the federal prosecutors was at, and he was one of the federal agents that were sitting next to the prosecutor, and then he paid for his lunch. And they talked for a amount of time, and he said to him, "I'm just paying it forward." This is what the juror said to the agent: "I'm just paying it forward." The agent let the judge know, and they released that juror. But that juror, after they went to lunch, that juror went back to the other jurors, and they spoke. But they only released that one juror. So this juror paid for the prosecution's lunch and said, "I'm paying it forward." What does that mean?
Yeah, that's definitely begs a question. I think we lost your audio feed.
Can you hear me? That was so
I can hear you
strange.
now.
It just kind of zoomed
All
out.
right. Yeah, so
Okay.
just on the charges, so he one of the charges that was appealed was a conspiracy charge of giving material aid to a foreign entity. Wasn't that the charge
Right,
that was
providing
dropped?
material support. hmm
And do you recall,
And
the reason why the courts decided to change their decision?
one of the reasons was they said that the judge misdirected the jury.
Yeah, I was able to do some court support, mass action, organize some court support, when this was in trial. So I recall some of this, and
Yes.
definitely want to encourage anyone listening who wants to help, that we may need you to come in and pack the courts. But it really struck me. I was there the day of the sentencing. The judge, he really tried to present himself as, neutral, or, just
Yeah.
above the law. But he definitely was picking sides. And when
Yes.
he kind of gave his summary, you just really saw it kind of ooze out of him, kind of his whole definition of what was or what was not acceptable as an
Yeah.
American citizen to think, even. As
Right.
if we don't have a tradition of people like Malcolm X
Right.
in our history.
Right. Right.
So
Um,
I was offended by his comments.
mhm. Mhm.
But anyways, we definitely want to make a lot of this more public for people to really digest.
Right.
But basically, they had to convict him on some kind of conspiracy charge.
Mhm.
For one, because that was part of their justification for
Yeah,
the
exactly.
murder of Usaamah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they couldn't charge Usaamah with anything
Mm-mm.
because they killed him.
Exactly.
So this is kind of part of also absolving themselves of the killing of your brother.
Right.
Um,
And I just want to interject and just
yeah,
say
go ahead.
one thing. So for his this is supposed to be a resentencing hearing for the appeal charge that was dropped, right? Or that was agreed upon to remove from as one of the charges. And from what is being said is they're trying to add and say, okay, actually we're going to go in and ask for life, natural life. This is a resentencing for a charge that was dropped. Why would they be looking for possible life?
Isn't that what they asked for in the original
In the
trial?
beginning. Yeah,
Right.
in the original trial, they asked for natural life, and they didn't get
Right.
it. He got 28 years, and I just feel
Well,
like
they were
it's
pretty
a
rabid.
retaliation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even the 28 years, even with comparable
28
cases, he was a pretty excessive charge. But on the other side of the coin, what are your lawyers asking for? And could this be a possibility that David's sentence could be more or less commuted down to time served or something like that?
I'm not sure. I can't speak to what they're going to ask for because I don't know what they're willing to ask for. I can't really say because I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
But there's discrepancies in a lot of things, and
Right.
it's just
Well, definitely.
not sure what I can.
Right. Well, definitely what you can't say, we can say as mass action, and we definitely demand, David Wright be freed today.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this does depend on the political pressure, and this time around, I think they'll feel more pressure than they ever have around this case.
I think so
So
too.
I really hope people turn out, save the date for the 28th, because Joseph Moakley Court may be where David Wright will have a resentencing hearing. And we'll just stay tuned for more details on that on the Mass Action website.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess just about Ravinsky, to get back to him, in order to prove a conspiracy, you kind of have to have more than a couple people. So, but there's reason to believe this Ravinsky guy wasn't necessarily on the up and up, or in any case, he definitely cut some kind of deal with the federal government to get a sentence reduced or something like that. I don't know if there's anything on this that you wanted to comment on or say about this person.
It's just it doesn't seem to be a coincidence that he's out. And I know a lot of people are out based on COVID, but if he was supposedly, quote unquote, a conspirator, how he could be easily set free, right? Because of COVID, but yet they're pushing for life for my son. The co-defendant, actually, they intercepted a letter that he tried to mail to my son, talking all this crazy stuff in the letter, and they still, and it's funny because in the news, they try to make it seem like it was David's fault that he's mailing a letter and writing this cuckoo stuff in a letter, and it's coming from him, but they still release him, and you're still trying to say my son deserves natural life. I believe they're basing this, and they're doing this just because he testified on his own behalf, one, which they were upset about, and two, he pled innocent, and he appealed. So to me, it feels like it's like retaliatory behavior on their part. Like, we didn't get the life sentence the first time, we're going to get it again this time. Oh, they appealed, they said the judge misinstructed the jury. It's like they're mad. It's like they're mad. And for me, like I've always said, and for my family and for the public, we all just want to know the real truth, because you can't have justice unless you're judging a case on all the truth. You can't keep throwing bullshit in the game and then expect to get a real justice. You can't. To me, 28 years is not justice. You threw a lot. They threw a lot of shit in the game, right? So if you throw a lot of bullshit in the game, how are you ever going to get real justice if it's not the real truth? Do you know what I mean? So it's like we're searching for justice for bullshit. Like, you know, and I just keep saying, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I just want to just take the elf off the shelf. Let's stop with the lies. Like, let's keep it real. Let's be true about everything. Without truth, there's no justice. Stop bullshitting.
Mm-hmm. Just on that too, and your mother alluded to it when she spoke at the press conference, but another strange coincidence on that day was the fact that on the Capitol, the U.S. government in Congress, the Patriot Act was up for revote. It had expired. It had to be revoted, and it was very convenient for those, you know, who rabidly wanted this legislation to be reapproved, to have a headline in the newspaper of a alleged domestic terrorist that wanted to behead police, you know. So that's another aspect of this I think really needs to be explored in depth, and we definitely want to come back to this as we, you know, just really educate the public about, you know, what this case really was. For a lot of people, you know, they just heard that storyline and that was it, you know.
And that was it.
Kind of almost a cartoon story.
And
it was really out there.
I do want to say another thing too. I think you were there for court support on that day when the informant, he sat on stage and he pretty much admitted that he lied. He never even met David in person. Do you remember that aspect of it? And they never even met.
I wasn't there at the time, but I did remember hearing that from other court support, and that's one of the things your lawyers are arguing, that you can't, you know, he never, like, he was convicted for some kind of like meeting with a foreign agent, and he never met with anybody.
No, he never met with anyone, and they corresponded, and then she even brought up records and said, listen, it even says here, sorry, I never even met you in person. But what he said is he met him in person. They had a long conversation about things. They never had a conversation about things they never met. So that's when she pulled out the calendar and said, you met on this date? Yep, we met on that date. She said, do you know that's when there was a major snowstorm and everything was closed? Do you realize that there's surveillance in South Station? What did he have on when you met him? I can't remember. So where's all the correspondence that David said he had with you regarding opening schools possibly and doing positive things? Oh, I lost my phone. I went kayaking and my phone drowned. She said the day before you were here to be on the witness stand. Yes, it drowned. His phone drowned. He was kayaking with his phone in his pocket. And all the information, all the positive information that was the correspondence between him and David, and between him and David, with David saying other things than what he's saying that would contradict what he's saying. He said his phone drowned the day before.
So there you have it.
And then at sidebar, they brought it up and said, listen, can we note that he's perjuring himself? Oh, no, we're just going to waive that. The prosecution went right back out there, even after he just perjured himself. She said, I just have one more question. You actually did meet David Wright, didn't you? He said, yes, I did. Okay, no more questions. The lie was right here. It was right here. And it's sad because it's like, and that's why I keep saying it, and I'm sorry I'm swearing on this podcast, but it's like, stop with the bullshit. If you want, let's just let all the truth come out, lay it on the table. Why does it have to be a narrative? Why does all these people that are involved in this case have a promotion because of this case? This was international news for bullshit, for added bullshit. Just keep everything laid out on the table. I want to know, lay everything out on the table. But when you add that bullshit and you try to fit your narrative, that's where it all gets messed up. That's why it's confusing. I don't even know. People don't even know, what is he in jail for? I don't even really know. There's so many different bits and pieces that were thrown in just to fit that little pocket of narrative that it doesn't make sense. 28 years does not make sense. Looking for
And
life
just
does not make
on
sense.
that too, like your mother, she had a meeting with the DOJ today. I don't know how it went, but you don't even know the names of the officers that killed
We don't
Usaamah,
know.
correct?
No, we don't even know. They won't release
Yeah.
it. They said it's federal information. They can't release that. Really? It's federal information. Well, I have a suggestion. Why not? Why not? There was multiple cars there. Why not get some dash cams going? Why not someone request a dash cam? Right? They didn't have any of the monitors on, but I'm quite sure there was dash cams in the area because there was all these cars faced in that direction. Why not request that? Almost like what happened with McDonald, right?
Laquan McDonald.
Yes, you see how they kept saying,
Right.
no, he ran towards us with a knife. There was a dash cam that a reporter, I think it was a reporter, an investigative reporter
Yep.
requested.
Yep.
There was the evidence, but it was after the case. And that's why it's so important when Mass Action says reopen the cases, because that's the only way that people will get real justice. All of this information never seems to come out until after the case is closed. There's so much information that comes out with cases after it's closed. Let's reopen them. Let's supply them.
Yeah. It's definitely the order of the day. So we just want to thank you, Shahida. Is there anything else that you want to just say or ask of the public around this case, or just in general?
As much support as we can get with getting the word out, getting the truth out. For these, not just Usaamah and David's case, but for all these cases. You know, it's so important when people come out in droves to let them know that the public is not okay with this. And, you know, it's really sad that we weren't able to come out, or we were asked not to say anything about the case for years, because it's the right thing to do. We don't want to purge anything. But I'm not going to lie about what I have to say anyway. But, you know, after the attorney suggestion, don't say this, don't say, you can't say. But then the public can just, when you do that, then the public just goes by what they say, right? This is what it is, instead of knowing.
Well, I'll never forget when you came into one of our meetings. It was maybe about I'll never forget when you came into the meeting that we were having about a year after Usaamah was killed. Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
I said I'd never forget when you and Rahim came to the meeting we were having about a year after Usaamah was killed, and that was kind of one of your major grievances, was you felt like, you know, because you hadn't spoken, you know, you weren't getting the support you needed, and nothing was really moving around the case. And I definitely think, you know, if there's one thing that we were able to do is try to, you know, definitely help people see Usaamah's case more in the light of everyone else's. And now I think, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about too, is I find it really curious that, you know, nowadays there's a lot of public officials that may, you know, even mouth the words of some of the victims of police violence here in Massachusetts, but none of them ever seem to name Usaamah when they say it. It's almost like he's specifically omitted. And why do you think that is?
I noticed that too. I think that if they bring it back to me, you know, they went so fast and so far with this information. And like, it's almost like they went so fast and so far, they made it international. But there's so many mistakes in that case. There's so many discrepancies. I think that if they speak on that, it's going to be reopened, and people are going to start questioning it again, and then they're going to have to answer to these questions. All the questions that are there, it just, I feel like they purposely omit his name with all the time. I always do. They try to make it seem like it's not a case, it's a halt. That's why they added that big T word to it, terrorism, because that way they can get the public's backing on it, because no one will be supportive of that. instead of getting down to the truth and what really happened. It was blatant murder. It's murder.
Right. Well, I'm just glad you got a chance to get this story out. We're going to keep focus on it. We're definitely going to build a pressure leading up to the 28th.
Oh,
We continue to demand
wait.
that these cases be reopened.
I just got a text from Mom. She said the
Mm.
podcast shut down.
It's shut
And if
down?
we're still on it. It's still on, right?
Are we broadcasting?
I can't see your face though. I can only see myself.
There might be a time limit on Facebook.
Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, the podcast did freeze. Wait, no, it's
still
going.
on. Okay. All right, so maybe
Thank you
hers
for all your
closed.
comments out
You're
there
welcome.
in the audience. We are very proud of this effort. This is 100% grassroots. You're getting the real news from the movement. Nowhere else are you going to find this kind of information. We need to spread it around where it needs to go. So once again, we really want to thank you for coming on. Shahida,
You're
we
welcome.
got
Thank
your
you.
back.
I know you do. Let me tell you, like I tell everybody, and I always say it, Mass Action had our back when everybody else did not. No one was listening. Mass Action reached out, and I tell you this from the bottom of my heart, you guys gave me my voice back for wanting to look for justice and vocalize it, because they just stripped it away from me and my family in the beginning and made us feel like we didn't have a stool to step on. Thank you. Thank you,
Hey.
guys. Yeah.
Feelings mutual, and I know with your voice back in the fight, they got some problems because you got that fire.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple other aspects of this we're gonna come back into when we
Yeah.
talk about this again. Boston, Minneapolis, and I believe it was the Bay Area were
Yes.
chosen as pilot cities for the Countering Violent Extremist program. And this may play into what happened with your brother and with David. Just different ways the government is kind of encroaching on all of our rights, trying to
Right.
basically predict,
Strip. Yeah.
alleged criminal behavior.
Mhm.
In that same token, I think some of the statements by William Barr recently with this Operation Legend and what they're doing in Chicago, some of these major cities, using more federal forces and just throwing more troops at problems, as if
Instead of
that's the solution to everything.
It's not.
So we're gonna wrap up this, and we'll let you go.
Okay.
And we want to go on an outro with, kind of the vibe of the march and
No,
get a
that's
few
right.
clips of the march and let people know we're going to still be out here. There's going to be an organizing meeting on next Tuesday. What is that date? That would be, I think it's the 15th.
15th or something? Yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday, September 15th at Terrence Coleman Park, 5 to 7. We're going to be talking about next steps, including how we organize not only for court support, but to just do a much deeper kind of education, community outreach education campaign around the David Wright case and the Usaamah Rahim case, which is really not well understood and really needs more support, especially in starting with some of these so-called officials that back this fight, allegedly.
Yeah.
That will speak some victims' names and not others. We're gonna hold all their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
And starting with Governor Baker.
Yeah.
So we had a
opened the
message for
cases.
Governor Baker. Yep,
Yeah.
on Wednesday, reopen the case.
We open the cases.
Free David
Open
Wright.
the cases. Free David Wright. Stop the bullshit. I got
Stop
your
the
back.
bullshit. Got your back. Thank you, Shahida.
All right. Peace.
Peace. Am I on? We're just going out on this mass action style, just for those who are still with us. Appreciate you. We probably don't have any time really for questions and comments, but feel free to email us at info@maapb.org. Stick around. We have a little good vibe for you. This is how we get down Boston style for the movement, and a few words to go out by. Get ready for our next podcast. It's going to be on the March on Washington. Recap of those events, the biggest demonstration since George Floyd was murdered, tens of thousands, but it was really a tale of two marches, and we're going to go more in depth in that, really a question of how do we fight and win this battle, and what methods are worth our time.
We're just going to close up. I'm going to just leave you with a few thoughts that came up on the last rally that I was asked to speak at. But I just wanted to point out, we're getting close to the date now. We're coming up towards November, and everybody's wondering what's going on, where is this country headed or whatever. But we just want to say that this movement really is the most important thing going on in the country today. It's the thing that has more power to bring people together from all walks of life than anything else going on in this country right now. And it doesn't really matter for mass action what happens in November, because we know we're going to have to stay in the streets regardless. Why? In the courthouse too. Why do we say that? Because both of these parties have blood on their hands. This is happening in red states, and it's happening in blue states. So the most important vote that any of us are going to make in 2020 actually is to vote with our feet and remain in these streets. We saw more changes through this method in the last 3 months than probably many of us have seen our entire lifetimes. So that kind of shows you the role of the elections and the role of the mass movement. And so let's draw those lessons and resolve to stay out in these streets. And we're not going to stop marching until we win. How long? Till we win. How long? Till we win. How long? Till we win. All right, until we meet again in the streets, y'all, mass action.
Part of us.
No peace, no justice, 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 no peace. Can't hear y'all. Justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no justice, no justice. Give it justice, police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better justice. No justice, no peace. No justice. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. the police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. No justice, no peace. 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 Better. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Come on. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. That's right. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. That's right. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. Everybody now, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. What? No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. Everybody, justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. Everybody, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You better prosecute the police. One time, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Yeah. No justice, no peace. You better the police. That's right, no justice, the police. Yeah. To prosecute the police. To prosecute the police. To prosecute the police. To prosecute the police. Doing what? Did we prosecute the police? 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 Doing what? Prosecute the police. Doing what? Did we prosecute the police? Do you prosecute the police? Do you prosecute the police? Lock 'em up. Do you prosecute the police? Lock 'em up now. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up. Lock 'em up. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up now. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up. Lock 'em up. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up now. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up. Lock 'em up. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up now. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up. Lock 'em up. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up now. Prosecute the police. Lock 'em up. Lock 'em up, y'all. Lock 'em up. 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 Lock 'em up, y'all. Lock 'em up. 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 Taking the jail, send them to hell. 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 Taking the jail. Take the jail. Watch my back, I'm under attack. You got my back, I got your back. Watch my back, I'm under attack. You got my back, I got your back. Under attack, you got my back.